Look, I stand at the door and knock. If you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in and we will share a meal together as friends. Jesus said that in Revelation 3:20, and I have never seen it illustrated better than in this episode with Jesus literally standing at the door and knocking.
I don't want to be rude, but would it be okay if I...
Oh, yes, of course. Please come in.
What did you think of this second episode of The Chosen? Let's talk about it.
Apparently something good can come from Nazareth.
Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my spoiler talk review for The Chosen Season 1, Episode 2. Now, if you're interested in my Chosen Talk, I got a Chosen Talk playlist where you can see my episode-by-episode reviews of Season 2. I did a full review of Season 1 and all kinds of other videos in between. So after this is over, check out that Chosen Talk playlist and see some of the other videos and conversations I'm having with you about The Chosen. Now, as we're waiting for Season 3, I thought this is the opportune time to go through the first season episode by episode. And it was interesting because I was watching the special edition Blu-ray the other day, and there's the director's commentary on this episode. And so the three writers are Dallas, Ryan, and Tyler. And Ryan and Tyler said that this was their favorite episode of Season 1. So what did you think of this episode? What is your favorite of Season 1? Let's talk about that in the comments.
Where did he come from?
Episode 1 did a great job introducing us to all of these characters, the world they're living in, and the struggles that they have. The job of a second episode of a series like this is to raise the stakes, to take us that next level deeper. And this episode 2, I think it did a great job of that in a very unique way by showing us Shabbat and how important it is. And as we learn how important Shabbat is, it really does raise the stakes with these characters because in a lot of ways, it really shows us more so where they're at. So this episode opens in Chinnereth, and what is it, 948 BC? So it's really cool how it opens it here because I think The Chosen does a great job, especially in later episodes, starting with this Old Testament scene, and then as the episode carries on, connecting it to the theme that is introduced in that Old Testament scene. It's like very cool how they do that. Now, this isn't a scene from the Old Testament, but they do a great job taking what they show us here and connecting it to the rest of the episode. For instance, as this kid here in the beginning is asking questions about Shabbat, I love the answers that he gets.
Shabbat is a time for rest and time to honor three things: family, our people, and God.
So when it comes to honoring God, I love what she says about this.
But most important of all, we honor God in all his works. We rest because he rested on the seventh day. We rest to refresh our souls, to know him better.
Getting to know God better. And it's about honoring God and doing these type of things that God does. It's this huge sign of trust in God as well. No longer are they slaves in Egypt because they have that freedom to take that day and rest as God took that day to rest. So it really establishes Shabbat and it establishes how important it is. And one of the things that I like, okay, I don't know if you've seen this, on The Chosen's YouTube channel, they have this behind the scenes look of just filming Chinnereth. And it's really interesting because they didn't film this in the middle of the night. They filmed it in the middle of the day. And it's interesting to see how they had to make day into night. It's really cool to go back and see how much work goes into a scene like this. The fact that they are outside. They are in this little gulch area, but it is actually daytime and they had to make it nighttime. I think that's a video worth your time to check out because I thought it was a really cool behind the scenes look. But what I really like about this episode is how after we have that opening, we build to 4 Shabbat dinners. And so we take our main characters that we've met and their life situations, and these 4 Shabbat dinners really do reveal so much about these characters. It really does take us to that next level with them, and it really does raise the stakes. The first place it raises the stakes is with Simon. I mean, just look at that Shabbat meal right there. It is riddled with tension, but they do a great job building it up to this moment so that you see why this meal is riddled with tension. Part of it is, here's Simon kissing his wife on the cheek and leaving. He's getting up to work on Shabbat. Now, with everything that we just saw, that should raise the stakes for us, right? Not only is he getting up to work, just as episode 1 ends with this great high moment of Mary being healed, episode 2 kind of ends with this dour moment. Yeah, that's Simon working with Romans. So episode 1, he makes this deal with Rome. So here is Eden, and she's having dinner with her mother for Shabbat. And because she's having dinner with her mother, Simon's able to go behind her back and work on Shabbat. Still catches nothing, runs into Quintus, and makes this deal with Rome to turn in Jewish merchants who are fishing on Shabbat. So turning in his own people. So this is not a good situation. But what I really like is I think this episode does a good job of not establishing Simon as a bad guy or even as an unfaithful guy. You really see he does believe in God. And it becomes this important message to us. Because you look at Simon and you realize this is not an overnight decision. This is how little by little things can crowd into our heart. Little by little, we give way to worries, we give way to fear, we give way to those things. And here he has, little by little, given way. I mean, episode 1 opens with him in a fight with his brother-in-laws because he's gambling. These things that he does to try to make money, and see how much he's leaning on his own understanding. And little by little, as he continues to give way to that, that becomes the strongest thing, as those type of things slowly creep into his heart. But as we see, Jesus is standing at the door of his heart and knocking. And that's the epic moment that we're building towards. And so you have this scene where he's in the bar and he's joking with everybody. And then Andrew points out this.
Buying drinks for the merchants. You fattening your lambs before the slaughter?
I mean, it's dark, but I'm watching them like, yeah, kind of true though, right? I mean, he's in a very difficult situation. And like I said, this is not trying to paint Simon as a villain. I think what they want us to do is feel trapped the way Simon feels trapped.
Well, nothing wrong with enjoying a little financial freedom. A temporary reprieve from doom.
You have these merchant vessels out there, 6 ships across, and they're catching all the fish, and he's just a little guy, right? So what fish is left for him?
You and Eden are my responsibility, not them. You two keep me up at night, not them.
So I think it does a good job of putting you in Simon's position of feeling trapped. And now he's made this deal with Rome, which kind of has him even more trapped. Can you imagine what's going to happen to you if you break a deal with Rome? And it leads to them sitting on the shore, looking out into the water all night long, the night before Shabbat, to see who returns and cleans their nets and who's staying out because they're going to be fishing on Shabbat. And listen to this little moment here.
We got him.
We got... Those are our brothers.
Tobiah looks to you before his own father.
So he's not just turning in the Jewish people, but it's people that he knows, and it's people that look up to him. And then Andrew again has a great moment.
I keep waiting for you to tell me this is all part of a plan to double-cross the Romans.
Think about what Andrew's going through here. Andrew is now following John the Baptist. This guy is now growing in his faith as he's watching his brother not exercise his faith. So that's got to be something painful. So here we are learning about Shabbat. We're feeling the weight of Simon working on Shabbat. And then you have this next morning with Eden.
Good morning, love.
It's not morning.
Good first seeing you then.
Okay, if I ever woke up and my wife was chopping vegetables with that ferocity, that's the call to repentance right there. And so what I like about it, though, is we meet Eden in episode 1. And I love how the Gospels doesn't mention Eden. We know he's got a wife, right? Because it mentions his mother-in-law has a fever and Jesus heals her. By that, we know he has a wife. I love the boldness of the writers of this show to give Simon's wife a name, a personality. And when we meet her in episode 1, she's teasing Simon. She's fun, she's playful, and it's this great marriage, and it's this other way that I can relate to Simon. But now we see how much he's hiding from her. And in this episode, she's seeing how much he's hiding from her.
Nothing is
You don't sell
happening.
to market. Your hours are upside down. And your face is frozen in worry.
And so, yeah, he gets honest and says, I'm going to be working tonight on Shabbat.
You need to work on Shabbat.
It's a special circumstance.
But he's not telling the whole story of, well, you know, those people who are oppressing us. I'm working with them tonight to turn in Jewish merchants. Yeah, he doesn't quite get into that, but you see that guilt is just racking him. But what else can he do? He's trapped. And I think that's what this episode wants us to feel, is trapped with Simon. And how, as he's getting like deeper and deeper into this, it's getting harder and harder to just believe and trust God. So here we come to this Shabbat meal. And is he taking that time to rest, to honor God, to honor family, and to honor his people?
I've got this, Eden.
You answer to God, not me. But next time, you answer to the both of us. Because whatever this is, I don't have the strength for it twice.
But it doesn't really end in that negative place, and I can't wait to get into one of my favorite episodes of Season 1, Episode 4, because we are building to this epic moment with Simon, with Jesus knocking on the door of his heart. With Matthew, we really also are going next level with what it means for him to be an outcast. We really saw it illustrated pretty well in Episode 1, and if we left it there, we get it. That dude is an outcast. Nobody likes him. He's a Jewish man working as a tax collector for Rome. This is a very bad equation. But when we get to his Shabbat meal, that's him alone on the street sharing his meal with the dog. We build to this image because we see how alone he is because his family, his parents, have disowned him. So it takes us that next level deeper of what it means for Matthew to be an outcast. And so it's kind of hard to watch because Matthew has this innocence about him. I love Matthew. Most people watching the show love Matthew. It's painful when he goes to the door and he wants to knock on his mom and dad's door, but he can't. He can't bring himself to do it. So he looks through the cracks in the door, and there they are having Shabbat meal, his mom, his dad, and his sister, and he's excluded. Again, on Shabbat, honoring family, and here he is disowned. And so now he's having Shabbat alone on the street with the dog. And it also helps you understand retroactively earlier why he so eagerly accepts an assignment from Quintus. So first, Gaius is awesome.
What did he say? He detests you as much as I do. And?
And I think one of the many reasons we love Gaius is, one, Kirk Waller does a great job playing this character. He makes this character rough, gruff, and very likable. But one of the things that makes him so likable, I think, is the fact that you can tell he likes Matthew. He just never wants to admit that he likes Matthew.
Listen, I don't want to have to carry your corpse out, so I'm going to wait outside for your replacement.
And there's just a lot of great little moments where he's protective over Matthew and he's trying to be there for Matthew while trying not to be there for Matthew. And so you do end up liking this character.
My father never allowed me to shirk responsibility.
Well, he raised you right. You must have Roman blood.
But the other thing is he meets Quintus. Matthew meets Quintus in this scene. And I love this scene for a myriad of reasons.
Since I do not believe you have an accurate understanding of what he can deliver.
I'm sorry for this dishonor, Peter.
Say your last prayer, Jew.
Stay there a moment, Captain.
Like that moment right there, where Matthew is coming in to really say to Quintus, you made a bad deal with Simon, and they are ready to kill Matthew. And Quintus is just like, hey.
Are you saying I made a bad deal?
Yes.
Where did he come from?
As I think the reason that Quintus can have this laugh that he has, that he can enjoy Matthew saying what he's saying to him, is because of something like this.
My brothers across the world search for brave men to spare and recruit, but our power prohibits those very efforts. For what sane person would stand up to the Roman Empire?
You see, Matthew has no guile. So when Matthew comes in here, he's throwing Simon under the bus. He's telling Quintus, you made a bad deal with Simon. He's not reliable, and he's going to disappoint you. I mean, that's going to get Simon in a ton of trouble. But again, Matthew has this innocence about him. His goal isn't to throw Simon under the bus. His goal isn't to embarrass Quintus with, you made a bad deal, you lacked knowledge in an area. Because there is none of that malice or any of that guile in him, Quintus can pick up on that. What's sad about that, though, is as likable as Quintus is, and I love Quintus, he's the bad guy. So what is he seeing in Matthew? He's seeing something that he can use. And so it makes you sad, but then when Quintus is offering them this gig and Matthew is super excited to take it and follow Simon around,
I would relish the opportunity, Dominus.
Of course you would.
You can kind of understand it because he's such an outcast everywhere else. This here seems to be the most acceptance that he's getting. And when you get to that image of him, Shabbat meal, alone with the dog in the street, it's like, oh, poor Matthew. And again, this is just one of those moments where we know this is building to something great. It's like what I said in episode 1, that sense of destiny. I watched Smallville before Clark Kent becomes Superman, and you just have that sense of destiny because you know who he's going to become. So in a sense, you could see Jesus knocking on the door of Matthew's heart because you know who he's going to become. I've said it many times, I think Nicodemus is one of my favorite characters of season 1, just because of his character arc. In episode 1, he goes to cast 7 demons out of Mary, and he fails. He fails in front of the other Pharisees. Now, this episode picks up where we left off, and I love how the concept of Shabbat and the Shabbat meal really highlights what a seeker Nicodemus is and what Nicodemus is going through. So this opens with some of the Jewish leaders in this area calling Nicodemus to stand before them. And it's kind of like that feeling of, oh, I'm called to the principal's office. This can't be good.
We are considering a formal inquiry.
What are the charges?
But I love it because it turns out it is good.
The woman in the red quarter to whom you offered rights, she is redeemed.
Can you imagine that? Nicodemus failed in front of his peers. And now here he is standing before them, probably ready to answer for that, feeling like a fraud, looking like a fraud. And here they're saying, dude, it worked. It's incredible. This is unprecedented.
This is an unparalleled revelation.
So he might be going from that moment of, I failed, to exhilaration of, how is that possible? There's no way. So he's got to go see for himself. But one of the things I love is, I think he goes home to change into his street clothes. And as he goes home, his wife is there. And he has this great little moment with his wife.
They have been waiting weeks for the teacher of teachers to lead Shabbat. It will be like sharing loaves with God himself.
Sharing? Look. Am I the only one hearing this?
And I just love that because it's his heart. And so you have a couple moments like that in this scene.
You just go through it quickly.
Try to avoid spending too much time honoring God and our heritage.
Where for him, it's all about honoring God. That's what Shabbat is. We rest because God rested and we're trying to honor God, and that's what he wants it to be about. You can see, especially in episode 1, where he says, why must I perform?
Why must I perform?
Like he's done with the whole performance of it. He's done with Shabbat being a time for his peers and others around him to posture for his favor and play politics. This is a time to honor God, and you see that's what he really wants to do. And that's why he really wants to find Mary, because he's seeking God. He wants to know, did what I do work, or did something else happen? I have to know. Because it's no coincidence, okay, that they mentioned it twice in episode 1, where Nicodemus came to the conclusion no one but God could have drawn those demons out of her. They even made a point of bringing that up again in this episode.
You yourself pointed out that the depth of her demonic oppression was beyond human aid.
So his seeking heart has to go find out. And I love this whole scene between Nicodemus and Mary. Their performances are so good. I mean, there's this moment where this single tear runs down Eric Avari's face. And I gotta say, they're both giving such good, genuine performances that if I was Eric Avari playing off Liz, I might have had a tear running down my face in that scene. Just the way she's delivering her lines, the way she's describing redemption. But he asks her, how long did it take after my visit for this to take hold? And I love what happens here.
It was someone else.
Someone else?
It's just his reaction. It's so innocent and hurt at the same time. But then you got to think, a light bulb goes off. Because again, the conclusions that he came to, no one but God could have drawn those demons out of her.
He called me Mary. He said, I am his. I am redeemed.
And it was so?
What do you think is even going through his mind? I feel like his Shabbat meal really does give us a hint of it. Because as he and his wife are talking about the Hasmonean dynasty, because they're looking at the tapestries that are hanging up.
Who is responsible for suppressing our worship now? I fear I know the answer.
I mean, do you think he's referring to Rome suppressing it? Probably. Or do you think he's referring to Sadducees and Pharisees who are more concerned about politics than what their role should actually be? And to kind of confirm that thought, you have this Pharisee who shows up at the door.
We are humbled and honored by your presence in Capernaum. You make us whole.
Only God can do that.
his dry and honest reaction to that is great. But this other Pharisee dude, he's just not deterred, and he says this.
Try to get the seat near the head of the table.
I mean, Jesus teaches the exact opposite later in the Gospels. And so it's interesting to just kind of see it play out the way that it plays out, to kind of see these characters and their natural state as now they're vying for the head at the table. But you can see that's what Nicodemus is disappointed in. He really just wants to honor God. But is that what his guests are here to do? Or are they playing politics, trying to get in his good favor?
So, man, that you're even hosting Shabbat dinner.
It will be nothing like yours, I'm sure of that.
Now, when we get to Mary's Shabbat dinner, I really do feel like that's what everything is building towards, because I see this picture as we build towards Mary's Shabbat. In episode 1, she was redeemed. But what we see in episode 2 is literally Jesus standing at the door and knocking. He desires to be her friend, to come in and share a meal with her. And so what we see is having that relationship with God is just that. It's a relationship. It's not just that one moment where we're redeemed or we're born again, but it's allowing him to come in our heart and allow that friendship, that relationship with God to truly begin as we walk with him in that throughout our lives. And that's, I think, the imagery that it's really building towards. At least that's what I see in this. So in episode 1, at the very end, she's redeemed. And I love that stark contrast between the episode 2 open and the episode 1 open. Because episode 1 opens in that darkness, with Mary dealing with fear, possessed by 7 demons. When we see Mary at the start of episode 2, she's smiling, she's joyous, she is completely set free. She is a brand new creature. And it's something that's incredible to see. In fact, it's why I'm wearing this shirt, because Tyler, who wrote this line, it is one of the best lines in the show.
I was one way. And now I am completely different. And the thing that happened in between was him.
I mean, it just sums it up, the power of God to redeem a life. And when I was watching the Blu-ray special features and I was listening to the director's commentary, one of the things that Dallas said is that line is as powerful as it is because they really spent the time to earn it. In other words, they built up. I mean, you saw her redeemed. You saw her brand new. And that whole conversation between her and Nicodemus, it's so filled with emotions. It's so well written. Like, you just see her struggling to have the words to describe this new thing that has happened to her. And this became the best way for her to do it. And it was awesome. And I love how she ends it.
So yes, I will know him for the rest of my life.
So that scene is amazing, but I think it really builds to this picture of the true relationship, the true friendship with God beginning. Now, when you get to her Shabbat meal, let's rewind and look back at Chenrith.
End time to honor 3 things: family, our people, and God.
So when she puts her Shabbat meal together, you have Barnaby and Shula, who are fantastic characters, show up for this meal. So those are her friends, the closest people to her. So basically, it's her family.
Close friends are like family too.
So here she is honoring them, inviting them to Shabbat. Then you got little James and Thaddeus who show up. And they're strangers to Mary, but they said, we heard this would be a good place to be.
We honor our fellow citizens on Shabbat.
Strangers of that?
We are all God's people, even friends we haven't met.
I just love that. I mean, I love the whole picture. Now, here's one of the fun things about this whole scene. So here we have this Mary Magdalene going through such darkness in the last episode. Now, this episode, we see her smiling and fun, but here she is having Shabbat meal, and she's nervous. She's excited, and she's nervous.
Oh, of course. Yes, of course. Please have a seat. I keep saying of course a lot.
So being nervous, she's repeating herself a lot. There's all these little awkward moments, and it just builds into the authenticity, I think, of this scene because it just allows us to have these awkward moments and to sit with them. I love how in this scene we really do peel back the layers of who Jesus is on the show. Like, we really get to see his personality. And what's great is it shines in these awkward moments, like Mary opening the door and just so overwhelmed that he's there. She's speechless. And, he's waiting for the invitation to come in because, he doesn't want to be rude.
I don't want to be rude, but would it be okay if I...
Oh, Yes, of course. Please come in.
So moments like that are great because it just shows his personality and how he's able to just have fun with it. Especially when he comes in to take a seat and you got Barnaby.
I'm Barnaby. This is Shula. She is blind.
In case you couldn't tell.
I love Barnaby. This guy cracks me up. The way he delivers these lines are hysterical. Telling these jokes oblivious to the audience that is in the room. But then he says the king of all jokes right here.
Apparently something good can come from Nazareth.
I mean, you just feel that awkward tension in the air, don't you? Where everybody's like, okay. But then Jesus just simply winks. And I've heard that Dallas and the writers and the cast, like they've heard so much about how that wink impacted people so much, because here's Barnaby sticking his foot in his mouth and Jesus just, he winks. He takes it in stride. He takes it as the joke it was meant to be, and you really see his sense of humor. The other thing I like about the scene is the fact that he sat down in the chair, the spare chair that she had.
Your guest can take the seat. Yes, Mary?
Oh, of course. Yes, of course. Please have a seat.
Now, it's funny because this is like an accidental picture that it was giving us. So here, as a child, she remembers Shabbat, she remembers certain things, but she's walked away from her faith for so long, there's a lot that she hasn't remembered. So she got mixed up. The seat for Elijah is meant for Passover and not Shabbat, but she had the extra seat set aside for Elijah. The idea being that Elijah comes before the Messiah, which that's what John the Baptist completely fulfilled. And so now this becomes the seat that the Messiah himself takes. It was the seat set aside for him this entire time, and she didn't even realize it. So this great imagery of him literally standing at the door and knocking and taking this seat that was set aside for him from the very beginning. So like, it was very cool the way this entire scene played out.
Most important of all, we honor God in all his works.
The other thing that I really like about this scene is, here's Jesus, a man and a rabbi, walking into this house, and in that time and in that culture, technically he should have taken over and he should have led the Shabbat meal. But what we really see is how Jesus breaks down those cultural norms.
Thank you, but this is your home, and I would love for you to do it.
And how much he cares about women, and he treats them differently than how society was treating them during that time. And so it's this very powerful thing that, again, shows us more of Jesus's personality, his love, his compassion. And so it's a very cool scene. And I just love how this episode took the whole Shabbat meal and used it as a way to raise the stakes for characters like Simon, to show us what it really means for characters like Matthew to be an outcast, to really show us how much Nicodemus is seeking, and he's hungry and thirsty for a relationship with God and to really find God. And then we have Mary, and we just see the joy in her redemption, and we get to know Jesus better.
Amen.
So they really took Shabbat and used it as a way to take us to that next level with the show and with all these characters and with everything they set up in episode 1. What did you think of this episode? Did you love that image of Jesus literally standing at the door and knocking? Let's be sure to talk about that in the comments. While you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Hit that bell by the subscribe button so you're notified for my next Chosen review, movie review, ranking video, theological analysis, or anything else I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.